Hello and welcome to Dr. Doc's Performance Playlist. I'm your host, Carly Doherty, Doctor of Physical Therapy and Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist. Joining us today are two very successful track and field college coaches. The first is Walsh University throws coach Jeff Jakmides, and the second is Bowling Green State University throws coach Marcus Myers. Thank you both for joining and congrats on yet another successful season. I started this podcast because I wanted to give advice to young athletes in all sports to improve their performance through nutrition and proper strength training for injury prevention. Today, I want to get your expertise specifically in training with throwers and advice for athletes looking to throw in college. But first, go ahead and introduce yourselves and tell us about your background, both as an athlete and as a coach.
I'm Coach Jack. I've been here at Walsh on and off since 2014. Before that, I went to Ashland University as a decathlete. Not much of one, mainly a thrower. But I've been coaching at Walsh University for, I think 10 out of the last 12 years, a year at Akron University, then came back to Walsh.
Myers. I was Coach Jack's athlete from 2014 to 2018, teammates with Carly here as well. I started coaching in 2018 in November at Northwood University. They were part of the GLIAC at the time. And then going into my last year, we went into the GMAC. But from there, I went to Bowling Green in October of 22. I've been there ever since.
I'm going to add a few more things just to hype you guys up a little bit. Prior to Coach Jack's time at Walsh, the Cavaliers had never seen a Division II national qualifier in throws program history. Once Coach Jack came to Walsh, the throwing squad broke 11 of 12 school records, produced 65 D2 national qualifiers, and achieved 6 first-team All-Americans. They also had Walsh's first NCAA national champion in the hammer throw in 2018, which happened to be Marcus Myers. And then also for Marcus, after becoming a national champion in 2018, he qualified for the U.S. Olympic trials in 2020. And Marcus began coaching throws at Northwood University. During his time there, 9 athletes qualified for D2 national meet, with the throws team producing 30 NCAA qualifying marks. Currently at BGSU, he led his throws team to back-to-back MAC championships. So you guys don't have to be too humble there. My next question for you guys is, what led you to want to be a throws coach?
For me, it was I needed a place to train. That's how I got into it. I wanted to train post-collegiately. I was trying to do it working a sales job, and it was just damn near impossible. So I got a call about a coaching gig at Northwood and went ahead and did it. I had no idea what I was doing and pretty much used it as a place to train, and that's what I was going to do. And then started coaching and figuring out what that was, and there was a passion for it, and I started trying to go 100% in 2 boxes, which is damn near insane and impossible. The whole time I was training for 3 to 4 years, I was coaching at the same time. I think there's a lot of positives with that, but also a lot of negatives in regards to my training. Becoming a throws coach I didn't mean for it to happen. It just kind of happened. It feels like a way to kind of give back to a sport that inevitably changed my life, just where professionally has taken me has been really, really cool.
Yeah, mine wasn't as smooth. I went to Ashland and moved down to Columbus, Ohio for a physical therapy assistant program after getting my bachelor's in exercise science. As the story goes, I ordered a pizza and the guy that delivered it was wearing a Capital track and field shirt, and I figured they could use some help. So I volunteered at Capital for a year. I think I technically started with the sprints jumps. Ended up doing just the throws, split time with a guy named Tony Connors who threw at Kent State. So he took hammer and discus, and I took shot and javelin that first year as a volunteer. And that turned into Ohio Dominican University. I graduated from PTA school, got licensed, and Walsh opened up full time. So moved back here and started working PTA on the side and doing Walsh full time. When I was at Ashland, I was an exercise science major, thought I was going to go strength and conditioning. Did an internship at UNC with football team under Tom Myslinski down there, and the weight room before 5 a.m. until out of the weight room at 5:30 p.m. after wiping the undersides of benches. I didn't really want that lifestyle, especially because he had been, Robert Morris, Cleveland Browns, Memphis, UNC, and Jacksonville Jaguars was where he finally landed all in the course of 4 years. He had a junior in high school at the time and 2 younger kids. And I just kind of saw the writing on the wall from that. I didn't want to be a strength coach purely because of the job insecurity, but I knew I wanted to coach, so that turned into just throws coaching and PTA on the side to fund it.
That's actually another question I had for you, Coach Jack. I know you started off strength training for jumpers, sprinters, throwers. So, how did you pick more so the throwing squad versus jumping and sprinting?
I was recruited as a decathlete to Ashland, but I went to state 2 years in the discus. My best event was as a thrower, but I was a 50 flat 400 guy. I had a lot of experience in the hurdles for my first 2 years of high school. I had high jumps, and I was, I think, 190 pounds my senior year as a discus thrower. Multi made more sense for me, especially with that hurdle experience, because that's what they look for. I like the other events. One of my favorite things is going to indoor conference or outdoor conference championships with old Herstein. And, I'll go with the multis, and I usually get to coach the multi high jump while he's at long jump. I still really enjoy coaching those things, but throws is just where my personality belongs by far. I'm a little too rough around the edges for some of these sprinters and jumpers anymore.
You guys both mentioned that you kind of fell into the strength and conditioning side of things. That's what happened to me too. I'm a physical therapist full time. And then I volunteered to help one of my friends who's an AAU girls basketball coach. And I was like, hey, I'll just come once a week, show them proper strength drills and how to land and jump to prevent ACL tears, because that's really prevalent in women's basketball. And after just a month of one time a week training, the parents and the coaches noticed a huge difference. So afterwards, they asked me if I'd be willing to do full time. And so that's how I landed into that too. It started with just volunteer and then it grew into something bigger. So it's pretty awesome. My first topic that I want to talk to you both about is nutrition periodization. Now that track season is over and athletes are entering into the off season, what advice do you give your athletes going into the summer for their training and nutrition so they don't return in August out of shape?
Early on, like once we're done with championship season, if we're done at conference with a certain kid, it's time to take some time off. You had a long season. You started doing stuff when you first got back in fall, and you're in 2 seasons from December until the end of May. It's definitely time to take some time off, specifically the weight room and throwing. You don't necessarily take time off of being an athlete, which is super important. Just because you're done with your competitive season doesn't mean you stop doing the things that keep you competitive. The summer at the start is definitely time to just take some time off physically, mentally, just to reset. When we get into July, it's a lot of like focusing on what the athlete's goals are. They have certain individual goals, whether it's physique or strength levels. The summer is typically when I give them a chance to do those types of things. It's building mass most of the time during the summer and then slowly working into just building some capacity and volume with the work in the weight room, just so that when they do get back, they're able to handle the workouts. I'm not as extreme as what Jack put us through back in the day, but I talk a lot about intentionality, and that starts even when we take time off right away from a competitive season.
I get on them to get back into throwing maybe a little earlier anymore than I used to in my career. I used to say, all right, everybody just get back going around July 1. I've even taken it a little bit earlier this year. We were done first week of May. May to July 1st is a little too long to not be in the rings. I sent mine out a program right around beginning of June this year, mainly because I didn't have anybody make it to end of May. Typically, though, it's Thrones based. Being at a place like Walsh, small, expensive school, you got to work during the summer. You got to make money. So I don't have any particulars on that. I say this year round, you shouldn't go more than 3 days without throwing. I give them a lifting program as well. They're on German volume training this summer, which I had success with back in 2021, 22 with some athletes. I'm in a, again, kind of underdeveloped group right now that needs that type of a summer. I don't have a ton of upperclassmen that are more in the maintenance, injury prevention type of a senior year coming on. I got some that we got to take to another level still. Nutrition wise, I'm one that doesn't get hyper involved with that because sensitive to most people. I've always said I will address things from a standpoint of like injury concern. If I've got somebody trying to throw the 35-pound weight, you need to weigh a certain amount, or you're going to run risk of injury. Same thing goes if you're too heavy. You're going to be more likely to get injured warming up, doing power skips if your body weight's too high and you're not maintaining the things you need to do athleticism-wise. So nutrition-wise and weight-wise is more geared toward the individual, and again, just kind of being safe with it more than really hyper performance based with it. It's a safety thing more than anything for me.
I try to stay pretty loose as well in regards to when we're having nutrition talks. If an athlete comes up to me and poses a question, I'll answer the best that I absolutely can and from the knowledge that I have. But we're lucky enough to have a certified nutritionist on staff in our athletic department. She does anything from just how do I eat cleaner in the calf. She'll do grocery store tours with our teams as well. which is pretty cool.
It's a tread lightly type of thing because I'm not a registered dietitian. So you've got to watch what you say to an extent. Can't give too much advice on nutrition because you're towing a line that you get into trouble for if you're being too specific. Athletes. I've done meal logs with athletes in the past, not even really to analyze and give advice, more so just for accountability. And that would help anybody. And if there is some glaring things like I had a half a dozen donuts for breakfast, then pretty common sense nutritional advice on that one. But you've got to stick to more layman's terms on nutrition.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome that you guys have a sports nutrition coach at BGSU.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. If you want detailed things, she'll write you what you need to hit every single day to get the goals that you talk about. I just want everyone to be fit, healthy primarily, so we can do the things in the ring. And if sitting down with a nutritionist helps that, and let's do it.
Yeah, I just got my sports nutrition coaching certification, but when I was doing my research, it does seem like track and field, it's usually the distance runners or the sprinters too that definitely worry more about what they eat because they think, oh, if I'm lighter, I'll be faster. And I actually had a good discussion with Sarah Berger, who was one of our distance runners back in 2018 with our class, Marcus, and she was talking about the struggles of since she's vegetarian, keeping her protein up and things like that. So that was a good conversation with her. But I was curious on the thrower side of things if athletes ever came up to you guys and talked about nutrition.
I mean, a general statement is most college throwers need to gain some weight.
Yeah.
Realistically, I mean, more need to gain weight than lose weight. I think it's safe to say.
That leads me to my next question. It's also a nutrition question. Once preseason begins in August and athletes return to school from the summer, college athletes are usually practicing 2 to 4 hours a day, 5 to 6 times a week, and workouts include both throwing and weight room sessions. How does nutrition and training change from the off-season to preseason? And do you have any advice for incoming freshmen learning their way around a school cafeteria to make sure they're getting healthy calories?
You guys vividly remember you're definitely shifting to need a lot more carbohydrates for when we're doing your high intensity interval training stuff. You're doing your med ball circuits, you're doing your weight room circuits, a lot of intensity, short duration, but a lot of volume stuff. And then you got to hit a lot of protein afterwards for recovery. As far as freshmen go, it's a lot of making sure they're with upperclassmen to go to the dining hall immediately after, because I'm sure you guys remember probably not feeling like you want to eat after some of those workouts, and you have to. So a lot of it's that discipline aspect there on just making sure you're getting to food quickly after those workouts, not going and crying in the shower for 45 minutes or more, Marcus, before going to eat something, or else then you run into the issues of athletes losing a lot of weight during conditioning, which is about the last thing you want.
We spend a lot of time talking about just what it takes to be an athlete at a high level, especially in Division I. They earn that to some point, but everybody's somebody at the college level. You're from a small town, everyone's from a small town no one knows, and they were good there. And that's all of what college sports is at this point, any division. We're really teaching the idea of like the student athlete lifestyle and what that actually takes. Like if you're going to tell me goals, if you're going to sit in front of me and tell me goals that you want to achieve, I'm going to tell you what it's going to take and what kind of commitment that is. There's 3 different areas: pre, it's present, and it's post. If the present things are in person, in the weight room, or in the ring throwing, what are you doing before that to prepare to have a really good day? Did you go to bed at an early time and get 7 to 8 hours? Did you eat in the morning and eat correctly to fuel yourself to be able to do a 3 to 4 hour session that includes 50 throws and an hour and a half to 2 hour weight room session? If you want high quality results of goals, then you got to be able to bring that high quality work every single day. So understanding that when I don't have eyes on you, that's the most important time in your day as a student athlete in regards to responsibility. I'm responsible for the development when I see you. I'm not responsible for the development when I don't. Lifestyle is the commitment to athletic success.
That's awesome. That's definitely something I tell my athletes too. Success is what happens when the coach isn't watching, right? Because we only get to see them a few days a week. So they have to make sure they're doing their things outside of practice too. So that leads me into my next topic of questions is post-workout recovery. Coach Jack, there were often times where I could barely walk up a flight of steps after heavy lift days at Walsh because, you made us do truck pushes or farmer carries with cinder blocks, all the fun things. DOMS is known as delayed onset muscle soreness, where an athlete is sore for 2 days after high intensity workouts. What advice do you give your athletes post workout so they can bounce back faster for their next workout the next day for both working out and their throwing session? Do you recommend things like stretching, yoga, ice bath, and then what kind of sleeping recovery do you recommend?
Yeah, I hold sleep to a pretty high standard, and that's probably one of the things that college athletes have the hardest time doing. That's a huge one that I try and hit home the importance of early on. Those delayed onset muscle soreness days are probably more during like eccentric cycles and things like that, really mess you up. Sleep, ice bath, stretching, and also not just laying there feeling sorry for yourself after workout. Like the best thing to do after workout is go do something active and make sure you aren't just laying around all weekend long, or Monday, you're going to have a hard time getting that engine going again.
My girls did pretty well. They did, it would just go out geocaching, which I didn't know that was a thing. So they'll just walk on the trails and all over the place. I'm cool with that. Like, go out and be active. The worst thing you can do is just like, oh man, my body feels terrible. That lift was crazy. I'm going to crawl in bed for 8 hours today on a Saturday and only move to get snacks from the fridge. Like, you're going to be destroyed. You're going to be lethargic on Monday when I see you, and I'm going to be yelling at you because you're not giving me the pop that I need for a Monday. Monday is by far the most important day of the week in regards to just athletic training at the college level. So if you're coming in and we're wasting time on Monday, I'm not going to be happy because you just didn't do what you needed to do over the weekend.
Yeah, that's definitely something as a PT I've been putting a lot more of my research in is recovery. Some of the things that I've come across is red light therapy has been shown to be good. Cold plunging, but only if you do it prior to resistance training, because they actually found like if you cold plunge after strength training, you can lose some of the hypertrophy and blood flow effects because it slows all that down. Saunas are good to relax the muscles too, and then blood flow restriction as well can help decrease muscle soreness. My favorite thing that you both said was the sleeping, like getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and then also mobility. Moving is the best thing you can because if you sit around, the blood flow is going to be stagnant and you're going to be so miserable the next day. My next topic is injury prevention. So, as a physical therapist, my biggest priority for athletes is to learn ways to prevent injury so they can perform 100%. What are the biggest training mistakes that you often see athletes making that may lead to injury or burnout? And what advice do you give these athletes to avoid these training errors?
If you get hurt in the weight room, I feel pretty dumb because the weight room is supposed to just be the engine for us to do the things in the ring or on the runway. So if I hurt you in the weight room, I'm going to take a good long look at what I wrote. So then it's going to bring me back to, well, what was your intention with the lift? I'm pretty big on preparation lifts, like low load preparation lifts. So if we're squatting that day, we might do 4 or 5 specific warm ups. It could be like a heels elevated goblet squat if we're back squatting, and you might have 4 to 5 sets of 10 reps. Like, you're doing 50 squats before we even do the squat workout. Like, are you taking that serious? Are you focusing on bracing? Are you keeping the depth? Are you keeping tempo? Are you preparing to do high reps at a high load? Because a goblet squat ain't gonna be nothing, right? But when you have 500 pounds on your back, it's gonna be something. So are we using the warm-ups to really prepare for that max lift for the day? That's what I'm gonna be asking. Most of the time the answer is no, because they see so many reps and they wanna get it done so they can keep it moving. Everything is intentional that we do. We're not just coming in here and doing what I saw on Instagram last night. Like, that would be stupid. There's no point to it and there's no purpose. So everything is intentional the way that it's set up. If you do your job of just doing the things that I asked you to do the way that I want you to do it with intention, then I'll do my job of trying to get us closer to the end goal that we all want.
Injury prevention is big on me with the significant injuries that I had and why I ended up being a PTA on the side. So I'm very big on, again, the things we talked about, preventative measures ahead of time, like Marcus said. The traps that athletes fall into a lot of time is if I've got 6 sets prescribed at a certain percentage on the back end. A lot of times, if you don't have percentages prescribed for kids specifically, then the first 3 sets are usually a complete waste. Making sure our work sets are what we're counting and not our warm up sets as work sets. Because if I've got if I'm looking at it and I want 30 reps a day, so I mean, I'm going 5x6 today, then that means I need 30 reps over a certain percentage or it's a waste of time versus somebody that dogs it on two of those sets as a warm up. Well, now it's only really getting 15, 20 of those reps where they need to be. And that's not what was prescribed. You're not getting the cumulative load that we needed out of the workout because you didn't warm up before. You used your sets as warm up. So making sure athletes know the difference between work sets and warm ups is probably the biggest fallout that I see on athletes missing.
So that brings me into my next topic is the weight room. So my interest in becoming a strength coach actually came from my experience at Walsh, especially with you, Coach Jack. But it was awesome to see myself go from a scrawny 400 runner freshman year to then being a strong javelin thrower by senior year. Marcus, I know this goes for you as well, going from freshman to senior year. I had no weightlifting experience in high school, and learning how to weightlift in college was a huge eye opener to me on how that can improve your athletic ability. But are you both the head strength coach for your throwers? And if so, can you explain your lifting programs, how you get your athletes to peak at the right time, and how to avoid hitting a plateau, especially since track and field is basically you have indoor track straight into outdoor track. How do you keep your athletes from plateauing and how do you get them to peak at the right time?
I've done the lifting for the throws my entire career. We're lucky enough anymore that we didn't have it when you guys were here, but we now have two strength coaches contracted through Cleveland Clinic. So it's nice to have two other guys in there that I spitball with. They're in there when we're lifting anytime as well as me. I write all the lifting. You've got to be prepared to identify the situation as it comes. Look at an athlete and see that, hey, the bar speed isn't there. We shouldn't be doing as many reps on this set, or maybe cut a set off because of what you're seeing out of an athlete. And that could be training. It could just be too much for them, or it could be they were cramming all night for an exam. They got dumped or something like that. There's a million factors that go into it, but it's the coach's responsibility to be able to adjust accordingly. You can't base your lifting off of percentages of a max on an athlete that's not functioning at a max level percentage themselves. I'm sure I told you guys throughout your careers, our goal is to go over 100%, right? What makes you think you're going to break your PR, break 100% if your body's at 75 because you were sick last week or you had a death in the family and you're just a mess mentally or emotionally? There's so many factors like that have to go into it that as a strength coach, you need to be present. You can't just hand an athlete a pack and say, go. That's irresponsible. My cycles tend to be 4 to 6 week cycles. We have fall conditioning at the start for the first 4 to 8 weeks because that's NCAA rules. You're only allowed 8 hours a week with them. So that's 4 hours throwing, 4 hours of conditioning. That is identifying leadership characteristics. That's identifying mental, emotional strength and weaknesses out of athletes. I stick to more of a strength powerlifting type base going into December because everything's got to stack on each other the way the season rolls. It's a lot of your primary lifts, like your squats, your deadlifts, your bench coming off of winter break. Then we get in more to our Olympic lifts. I tend to go more like power clean base for indoor and then transfer that into snatch base for outdoor overhead stuff to lighten the load, but you're still maintaining a high level of intensity percentage wise with an increased range of motion. So when you're adding in the events like a javelin or a discus, there's a more of a length aspect to those two, but a fluidity to it that's more snatches and overhead versus indoor. We're throwing the 35, we're moving heavier weight. So that's where we're doing more cleans. And with everything, it's got to be a progression to it. So we can't go light and then go up and then back. So we're building up through the season with those lifts. I try and fall it in line with kind of how we're phasing in our throwing as well. Same thing, 4 to 6 week cycles. And yeah, I'll take psychology over anatomy most times. You guys know it from being athletes under me. I mean, we would max out week of conference. Most strength coaches aren't going to have you do that. You're going into a competition where you're on a runway or you're in the ring by yourself. You've got your teammates hooting and hollering around you. You're going to feel a little bit better about that if you just in the weight room on Monday or Tuesday had almost the exact same scenario. I'm the only one in the rack. The bar's only on my back. I've got people spotting me. I've got coach making my ears bleed, but it's mine. No one's taking that off of you, just like in competition. So if you can get an athlete to a very high level place, like psychologically with lifting, that is what I shoot for as a coach. I'll shut someone down before I know they're going to miss so that they leave on a high note.
Yeah, I always really liked having Max out day right before a huge meet, hearing everybody scream in the weight room. It was always really intense.
Yeah. Yeah, and like confidence, like hitting a PR makes you feel like you could hit another PR in comp.
Yeah, just like Jack, I've been in control of the throwers weight room development since I've started coaching in 18, but a lot has changed over the years. But to back Jack's point, what I've learned the most is like coach with my eyes, not what's on paper. We spend a lot of time of, well thought out of how we're structuring a program and what it leads to and why we're doing. It can make a lot of sense on paper, but at the end of the day, there's so many factors that are outside of our control, especially with student athletes. Be watching the quality of work. It's not necessarily always about, big weights that are on the bar or how fast it's moving. Sometimes it's just the demeanor of what the work is and how it's actually being executed. At the beginning of this year, our first throws group meeting, we talked about what we wanted to achieve. We talked about just a general overview of what we were about to do throughout the year. I looked at every single one of them and told them, if you guys can survive the fall, we're going to be fine. But you've got to survive the fall. It was a very high volume, middle to the road to moderate intensity in regard to load. And I didn't care what it looked like. You could crawl through a squat. It didn't matter to me as long as the reps were done. But when we get into championship segments, such as like indoors or outdoors, I think the two differences between how I program is like indoors, I don't necessarily care how fast it moves because to me, it's still the tail end of just general strength development, especially if you have young kids, freshmen, sophomores. But when you get to outdoors, the intention goes on the velocity. How fast are things moving? We have some cool technology that we're able to use in regards to velocity indicators, and I can set ranges so I can kind of keep things in line. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter what I'm prescribing necessarily with weight. More matters of how fast and what the readings are in regards to bar speed. Really, when we get into outdoor, it's about speed and velocity and just a general taper for me. So I would really say just indoors is a big focus on the final details of just general strength development. And then outdoors, it's really about, well, how can I challenge you as an athlete? Not every year looks the same at all. You have different athletes with different needs in yourself. Like you're still growing. Ideally, even if me and Jack have been doing this for 50 to 60 years, which we won't be, but ideally we're still learning and growing as a coach along the way.
Kids change so much. You could have phenomenal seniors that can make a bad program great. You could have bad upper class leadership that doesn't carry you through the tough times. My coach Judd, he always said about 90 to 95% of what your programming is going to stay the same. Your job is to spend 90% of your time figuring out that last 5%.
That's the big importance of athlete to coach relationship. The person who's driving the boat has your best interests in mind. I always talk about Jack and I's relationship was like, I think it was towards the tail end of my junior year. It became more of a dialogue. I started having my own ideas of how the throw should work, but it was something with the entry. It was something throwing the hammer and you wanted me to do this one way and I didn't agree with it. And we pretty much went back and forth for a week on the same topic. And normally like we would go back and forth and you'd either let me be right for a change, but this was one that even through a week, I still disagreed with you. Was like, look, we're just going to do it the way that you want me to do it because everything up until this point has gotten me to the place that I am now. I think what matters is if you trust your coach is going to get you there. That confidence alone is the confidence of a massive PR the week of conference. we're playing a game of just building confidence and having confidence when we're going into the arena. So if you're getting beat up so bad in the weight room with whatever we're programming and you can't do the things that I need you to do in the ring, well, it's pointless for what we're doing. So we might as well change it. When you write programming, ideally it hits, but there's a lot of things that we don't know and can't see that affect it. So I think that relationship is super important between coach and athlete, and making sure coaches are coaching with their eyes and not getting paralyzed by paper.
We get 4 years with an athlete, or less sometimes, or more sometimes. But if you're not listening, it's just, you may not get where you want to go in time. That's where, again, team dynamic, like culture, is so important. Because if you've got that 4th year senior or 5th year senior that's been through it all, that can talk you off the ledge after the first week of conditioning and you want to quit and go home, that's where it's so important to help people stay bought into those phases. What's better, going into conference and your teammate just PR'd, and then your other teammate just PR'd. It's like, oh shit, it's my turn now. I'm on the same phase as all these people. I'm doing the same thing as these people. These are my training partners. If they're hitting it, I'm next.
Yeah, my relationship with you, coach, was definitely different than Marcus. I don't think I'd ever tell you that you were wrong at something. But one thing,
Every meeting was here.
I'd be nervous to tell you I'm not feeling good today.
Got to.
But one thing, like, obviously I never threw javelin a day in my life, never threw anything ever. So the biggest thing that you helped me with was visual feedback, because you were understanding that I wasn't getting just verbal cues. You would video it and show it to me. And then also I liked what you guys said about surrounding yourself with other people who are going to bring you up, because obviously hung out with Marcus and the throw squad, but then my roommates were also on the track team with Meredith, Caitlin, and Slow-Mo. And just like all of their work ethics really helped me become a better thrower, because track wasn't even my main sport, but because of our family and our clientele at Walsh, it really helped me become a good thrower, which was awesome. Do you guys both use Team Builder still when you log your lifts?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
I started using Team Heroic for our kids to use, but what I like about it and what you guys said was sports psychology. And if they didn't get sleep, if like somebody passed, or if they're in a mood, not feeling good, irritable, on Team Heroic, there's a little spot where it has like 0 to 10, feeling really good is 10, 0, not good, and have them track how many hours of sleep they had. So then I can go through and be like, oh man, why was their lifts so much weaker this week? And I can see, oh, they put down that they had 4 hours of sleep and that they weren't feeling good that day. So I think that plays a huge role too on how they're lifting.
Yeah, I need to utilize that little smiley face scale more often.
Yeah. Team Heroic was cool that it told you who the leaderboard was, because that was always a friendly competition of who I could beat in the bench press. I never came close to Kendra on the deadlifts, so I won't even try that.
I don't think I came close.
No, I think she would go over to your guys' deadlifts and add on 45 more pounds on each side, and it was a humbling experience for y'all.
Yeah, defeating a little bit.
Yeah,
My next question for you guys. So track teams are obviously pretty large. How do you ensure each athlete is pushing themselves each week? And how do you make sure each athlete has proper form, especially if they are new to lifting? And then do you have the same expectations for freshman athletes as you do for seniors?
I'm lucky enough to just have women's only. So we're a classic mid-major. We have men's cross, and then women's cross and women's indoor and outdoor track and field. So my group is relatively small. I had 11 this year. I'll have next year. So for me, like being able to like individually program and train kids, it's a lot easier just because my group isn't as massive as what we were when we were in college. I mean, I think we had north of 25 kids at times.
Yes.
I have kids that I can write for. 1 to 2 of them are going to be outdoor only. So what their progression through fall and through those winter months are going to look substantially different than what active competing kids for indoor are going to be doing. Every athlete's different. They have different physiques. They have different frames. They have different athletic capabilities. I focus on strengths first because strengths pull up the weaknesses in regards to where we're starting at. I'm able to do a lot of individualized training, whether it is in the weight room or just general skill instruction, because my group is relatively small.
You guys were the guinea pigs with me at Walsh my first year. You were there before I was there. I'm sure you remember that first year where we had sprints, jumps, throws, everything up to the 400. But again, culture, buy-in. The same year you guys were freshmen developing, Carly, your brother, they're winning the Goliath in the 4x4. I mean, unheard of for Walsh. And they were doing all pretty much the same stuff. I didn't do a whole lot of variation in that group at all at that point in time because I had so many. We probably had 30, 40, 50 athletes in there at that time.
Probably
That group, we trained everybody pretty much the same. I'm sure we made little adjustments your final years off of what everyone else was doing. Marcus, your training plan your last year because we knew how your season was going to look. You were going to go to outdoor nationals. You competed every other week or every third week. So you're training dramatically than everybody else. So you learn little variations with athletes, but I also don't really believe in doing it that too early.
I would say in regards to like expectations for freshmen to seniors, I would say like standards don't change. Like expectations do change though. Sometimes there's conversations in regards to what I gave you in scholarship. If I give you a full ride as a freshman, I'm expecting you to go into the MAC meet and score your first year. That's why I gave you a full ride. That's the expectation. I can recruit very good athletes, but there's still a level of development. I think at all levels, there's a level of development. Even if you're bringing in a kid that's going to make NCAAs their first year, there's still a level of development that needs to happen, whether it's mentally or physically or both. So I would say sophomores coming back, yeah, there's going to be more expectations for them, but it's going to be reasonable. I would never give you something that I don't think you can achieve or attain. But even if I have a senior that I feel like you're operating at a freshman expectation, I'm going to give you what you're giving me at the end of the day. Like as a coach, you can't want it more than the athlete. You just absolutely can't. So I think there's a lot of just gauging where your athlete's at and their commitment. It's a privilege to be under pressure. And that's why expectations have to change year to year. And they have to get harder, period. Because if not, you're not developing as a person.
Some of the big points that you guys mentioned was that you're able to develop a program specific for athletes. A lot of strength coaches keep the same programs year after year and they think theirs is the best. But what makes you guys great is that you're able to change it based on the group of athletes that you have and that you're tailoring things towards their athletic level. That leads me to my final question here. When you guys are recruiting high school athletes, what characteristics specifically are you looking for, and what advice do you give them when choosing schools?
Walsh is tough. So academics is a big limiting factor for me because I need to know you've got your head on straight, that we're not going to have to spend time or energy with me hounding you to keep yourself in line. I've been telling every recruit I talk to, my expectation is for an academic All-American. When D2, that's Provo and a 3-3. Academics for me is huge because it tells me your head's screwed on straight, and that's going to be something that's taken off of our plate. That's an expectation that we don't have to focus on, right? I know you're going to do that, so I'm going to focus on throwing. I put a ton of stock in personality fit. Walsh is a place that you aren't coming here unless you're coming here for the right reasons. I'm going to recruit to people that recognize the value and what this place offers as a university and as a throws program and as a track team. I've got my standards of throws I'm going to look for. You got to be able to throw over a certain level. And then you've got academic standards I'm going to have. And then you got to make it through a phone call with me. I have a problem with probably taking too much time on recruiting phone calls. I've had phone calls go over an hour. It's pretty common with me. And I've cut off phone calls after 8 minutes because if we can't do this, you're not going to learn from me. It's dialogue, it's communication. If we don't speak the same language, you ain't going to learn. I want competitors. I want you to play football and play basketball, to compete, right? I know how to coach you how to throw. Right. And there's a million ways to teach you techniques and everything like that. Marcus, you never touched a hammer till you came here. And Dom Nutter, that was just #1 in the country in the hammer, never touched a hammer till he came here. You were in a really good environment with really good people that made you better. Realistically, do you think you would have made it in a big school and not got in trouble or get lost?
No, I mean, that's exactly why I chose where I chose.
Like you got to have the right environment. You got to have people that complement each other. It's not just the numbers on mile split or what you say you did in the weight room. It's Can you communicate? Are you polite and respectful?
I can relate to a lot of that. A lot of times in the recruiting process for me, talking to a recruit, I'm going to show you who I am and what I am as a coach and my personality. I'm going to show you what the facilities are and what the area is and what the school is and what we have to offer. If those things check all those boxes, then this is a potential home for you. I'm not willing to sacrifice what our team culture is and our group culture is for a kid that has just like high, ridiculous numbers. I just won't do it because it's not enjoyable to me. If I have an athlete who has really good numbers, but man, I just hate showing up to practice every day to coach them because they have poor character or poor work ethic or whatever. I don't want that kid. I'm not just a big scary coach with a logo on his chest. We're going to have fun. I want to have fun. I don't want to be angry behind the ring. If I'm angry behind the ring, it's because we're not doing the things and hitting the standards that I expect. But most of the time I want to be behind the ring singing off key and having you guys tell me to shut up. That's my ideal environment. At the end of the day, it's really up to the recruit, like what matters most to them. Is it finding a coach that they really like at a school that has their academic interest? I knew I was going to be successful at whatever level it was in track and field because I didn't even want to go to school if it wasn't for me just throwing. I knew if I went and did this thing, I was going to be successful to some level. So I chose Walsh mainly because it wasn't anything. You know, I knew I was going to be successful. So if I could go somewhere and make some sort of an impact, and help build a program that was relatively new to Division II, that's what I wanted to leave behind. How many people are in a college Hall of Fame or have school records in the college level? Not a lot of people. And you see these kids that are going to one school and then transferring out and transferring out. What are they getting out of a place? They're just saying, well, I was there 1 year. I was there this year. I'm proud to say it. I was from the same institution for 4 years, and this is what we did. 5 national appearances, 4 All-Americans, and a national title. But on top of that, look at the numbers of increase of national marks and people qualifying in other events, and the program just genuinely being on the map in regards to track and field and in Division II and in the GMAC. So I'm looking for people that obviously align with who I am and personality. I don't necessarily need them to love all the athletes that are on the team right now. You guys will be teammates, more than likely, probably best of friends for the rest of your life. I don't need you to be best of friends with everyone, even though you probably will. So I'm looking for people that want to be here, even at the Division I level. You want to be at Bowling Green because you want to be at Bowling Green. When you're talking to coaches, I would say we're all relatively normal people. Most throws coaches have beards, can be slightly intimidating, but at the end of the day, we're pretty cool individuals. So just talk to us like you're talking to anyone else. Just be yourself, be respectful, and just hold yourself at a high standard, and you'll get the respect of coaches. So
Don't use Chat GPT, but use spell check.
yeah.
Yep, most throws coach have the beards and the hat every time I see him. It's a must. I remember I asked Coach Herstein what he looked for when he recruits his sprinters and jumpers, and he mentioned the GPA. He had a team of nerds, right, when we were there, but he's like, if they're going to work hard in the classroom, you know they're going to work hard on your track. And so that was a big thing. But then secondly, Marcus, when we were there, we were a huge family, not just the throwers, but we would go into the cross country meets and root on our endurance runners. Like we were going to watch Caitlin in the pole vault. We were going to watch all the jumpers, sprinters. We were a huge family as a team. And so you never had one person that was brought down because if they had a bad day or a bad meet, we would bring them up and then they would do well the next week. And that's the biggest thing is family and making sure that they're a good fit with that family.
Finding a place of belonging, which is hard and super intimidating. And it's hard to see like where do you fit in a group of people that are older than you when you're visiting, and living just a completely different life. If you feel that little sense of belonging, it's probably where home needs to be at.
Well, those were all my questions for you guys. Did you have any last minute comments or anything you wanted to add?
What sports you getting into by now, Carly? Are we going to get some throwers sent up our way anytime soon?
I know that's my goal. Right now, I'm just with basketball and soccer, but the goal is to add in more track athletes too. Hence, I was hoping this podcast would kind of open people's eyes a little bit on how awesome throwing is, right? But I'll definitely tell them to look towards you guys in Ohio. Just hate the cold weather, but It is what it is.
Need more throwers because I had a lot of recruits this year that were either E1 focused or they were very undecided or they wanted to do multiple sports in college this year or they didn't want to do track. And I think what a lot of high school kids don't realize is those team sports in high school, like your football or your volleyball or your basketball, you get such a tight family and community out of that. That's what I think a lot of these kids are wanting in college, not realizing that when you get to college, the standard is higher and you have that, right? Like a lot of high school teams for track and field, they're not going to be that way. Like it's how many kids are there so they don't have to take gym class. Not everybody's taking it seriously and they don't, you're the only one in the ring. There's not that investment in each other in high school track that there is in team sports. But when you get to college, there absolutely is that. So I think that's a big thing to maybe make high school kids understand is all the things you love about your team sports, you get in track with your training groups, but you're not dependent on them for your wins and losses. That to me is the biggest draw track. You get in what you put out. And if you're in a great program with a great team and a great culture, you're going to do really well. It's fun. I mean, you guys know everybody going nuts when somebody PRs or the whole group starts popping off one right after another. There's nothing like that. That's like catching fire in a basketball game and your team starts rallying around you. That is what college track is like, is all those best moments of team sports without some of the worst moments where one person didn't take it seriously and then blew the game for the team. You know, you don't have that because if you have somebody like that on your team in college and track, well, hey, probably ain't going to be around long and you can still train and compete despite that. So it's you're self-sufficient. But if you're in a great place, it's just like being on a great basketball team or a great football team. And it's a ton of fun all day, every day.
I was mainly a basketball player in high school, and then when I tore my ACL senior year, that's why I went into the track realm. But in high school, I was always injured, so track was kind of just to get back in shape. But then in college, I learned so much about myself as an individual because it is more of like an individual sport for your event. Obviously, we have our team to help pick us up. But at the end of the day, the numbers are all on you, whether it's sprinting, jumping, throwing, those numbers reflect yourself versus the team. Like if you make a turnover in basketball, right, your teammate can help pick you up. It's not like that in track. It's very much you learn about yourself as a person. And I'm very happy that I changed from basketball to track.
And the opportunities are so much more in track too. No dig on basketball because that's your bread and butter, but 5 people on the court, like they'll sub in, but and how many roster spots are there for that track? You come in, compete, take you to meets, you get to do pretty much everything. So let's go. More track.
I'd say my final thing before we get off here is what I hate seeing is wasted potential. For any young high school athlete that wants to go into college, genuinely make the decision. If you're going to college for a sport, make the decision now to live that lifestyle, that student athlete lifestyle, and just really buy in 4 to 5 years. You'd be surprised on what you can accomplish. In college, there's a lot of distractions. Obviously, you're living on your own or you're away from home. You have a lot of freedom. And with that freedom, you have a lot of time to make decisions. Sometimes those decisions are good ones and bad ones. It's all part of character development and experiences of life for sure. But if you make a commitment to go on to the next level at college and compete in athletics, make the decision now that you're going to treat it like a professional. You only have so many years to really hit your true athletic potential. So when you do have that opportunity as a freshman in college, please grab onto it and run with it. You just make the decision and commitment for that athletic lifestyle and just live it for 4 to 5 years until you graduate. Hell, you might train as a professional after college. You might have opportunities as an athlete after college, whether it's track or any other sport. Just make the decision and live that lifestyle and be okay sometimes walking against the grain. There's going to be a lot of people around you that might not necessarily choose that lifestyle or choose that path through college. Be okay kind of being the black sheep because I swear, character development wise, you're going to get a whole lot more out of those years where you truly committed to yourself and to a plan for 4 to 5 years, and you're going to be able to accomplish anything after that kind of time and experience. So just commit to the lifestyle and reap the rewards later down the road.
Yeah, I think that's huge. For the girls that I train right now, I always have them put a short-term and long-term goal, and then all of them, of course, right? Oh, I wanna play in college, or I wanna do a sport in college. And so I try to teach them now work ethic because they don't realize how much harder a sport is in college. It's a full-time job on top of schoolwork and XYZ. So when they come to me and like, "Oh, well, I'm tired from a tournament that I had this weekend," I'm like, "Okay, welcome to college. Now we have to do the mobility, do the recovery so that you're not sore the next day and that you're working hard for what you wanna do." And I remind them, "Hey, your goal is to play in college, right? So we need to make sure we're working hard now." And then also, future athletes make really good coworkers, they make good employees. So if they learn the work ethic now in high school, then in college, and then even later on in life, they're gonna be successful. But yeah, that's all I got. So thanks again, Coach Jack, Coach Myers, for joining us. Coach Jack, thanks. You're the huge reason why I wanted to become a strength and conditioning coach. You taught me so much, and I learned a lot about myself and my work ethic and what all I can achieve. Back in undergrad, I didn't know if I could become this PT, and now I'm also a strength and conditioning coach, and I feel very confident in what I do and how I can help other athletes. And you're definitely a huge role on why I became that way. And Marcus, I'm sure you can also thank Coach Jack of how his coaching also impacted you as well.
I could. I definitely could.
So
No, I'm proud of you guys. You guys have done a lot. And so congratulations on being successful humans.
good luck coaching the future generation and good luck to the next season. We look forward to cheering you guys on and watching the successful throwers.
Appreciate you,
All
Carly. Take
right.
care.
See you.